Okay, before we start, I want to remind everyone that this webinar is recorded and the recording is going to be placed on our website. So Julie is going to provide a link in the chat for the website so that everybody can access the recording after this webinar and also the meeting materials, which is just one presentation. The presentation is already posted, so everyone can also go to that link to find that presentation. So for today's webinar, it is co-hosted by California Association of Coordinated Transportation and the California Transit Association, along with the California Air Resources Board. We really want to bring a whole variety of technical assistance tools to all of our transit agencies, especially for the small and the rural ones, because we understand that you have very limited resources in terms of your planning and also in terms of your ability to look for tools. So the CalFleet advisor is going to provide free one-on-one technical assistance to the transit agency that is in need. So for today's webinar, the Q&A sessions, the Q&A box is ready for your use. If you have any comment or any questions, please feel free to type in. And the chat box, in the chat box, you are going to find 3 different links. One is CalFleet Advisor website. The second one is the website to our meeting recording and the material. The third link is a funding finder tool. And also, we're also going to activate the raise hand function after today's presentation. So for today's presentation, I want to thank Brian and also introduce Brian Wren, who is a program manager, who is the program manager of CalFleet Advisor program. So Brian has been kind of establishing this program and also implementing it, and also currently has, I think, more than 1,000 clients already within under 2 years. So it is a very, very huge accomplishment. And we really appreciate Brian today to help bring really in-depth knowledge about this program and also how he and his team could help everybody. So please pay attention to Brian's presentation and also ask Brian all the questions you may have. So without further ado, Brian, it's all yours. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. As been mentioned, my name is Brian Rand, and I'm the program manager for CalFleet Advisor, which is a free technical assistance program for medium and heavy-duty fleets looking to move to zero-emission vehicles in California. CalFleet Advisor is administered by CalSTART, which is a clean transportation nonprofit on behalf of the Air Resources Board. So if you give me just a moment, I'm going to share my screen and get the presentation going. All right, you should be able to see the presentation now. Please raise your hand if there's any problem there. Otherwise, I'm going to get going here. So the first thing we'd like to cover is, what is CalFleet Advisor? CalFleet Advisor came about starting in the 2021-2022 timeline when we were looking into how best to accelerate the adoption of zero-emission vehicles in California. So in 2022, we did a study and asked small fleets, what of the following what would help you feel most comfortable adopting a zero-emission vehicle? And what we found is, of the answers that we received, the top 6 could be addressed with education and one-on-one technical assistance. It wasn't even necessarily a issue of the capabilities of the vehicles on the market or being able to purchase them, but simply a lack of awareness and knowledge of how to implement them in the fleet. So what we did is we created the program called CalFleet Advisor, and our mission is to provide no-cost education, technical assistance, and referrals to enable California's medium and heavy-duty fleets of any size to switch to zero-emission vehicles. As I mentioned before, CalFleet Advisor is administered by CalSTART on behalf of CARB. CalSTART is a clean air nonprofit, and our goal is to provide boost the market to ensure that our transportation becomes as clean as possible. The CalSTART's been around for over 30 years now, and we've been working quite closely with the Air Resources Board. Our funding comes from the HVIP program. Some of you may have heard of that. It's a program that we administer on behalf of the Air Resources Board, and it's the largest zero-emission incentive program in California. And what we do is we provide technical assistance to all of California's medium and heavy-duty fleets. There really are no restrictions on who we can help. That being said, our priorities are small fleets, those involved in the drayage community, and those in disadvantaged communities. We're certainly happy to help anyone in the state, but especially smaller fleets seem to get the most benefit from our help. And we take a collaborative approach to fleet assistance. We're here to learn what kind of obstacles you're encountering and then help provide assistance to overcome your specific obstacles. We're not here to provide a boilerplate, one size fits all solution, and we understand that every fleet has their own issues that they're trying to overcome. So how do we help? Well, we're going to provide concierge style assistance to help fleets overcome your electrification challenges. We're going to sit down and talk to you and learn about your fleet and then speak specifically to what your fleet needs. We're not a one size fits all approach. We're looking to address exactly what you need help with. Also, our focus is on straightforward solutions to stated issues. We don't have any agenda other than getting zero-emission vehicles on the road. And to that end, we're simply here to help you in your goal to do the same thing. And then the final thing that we really like to do is that everything that we learned from previous fleets, we like to apply those lessons to future fleets so that the longer we work, the more adept we are at helping folks and the better advice we can give as time goes on. So our goal is to provide everything you need and nothing that you don't. And so that's one of the reasons that we're delighted to be speaking to transit communities today. You know, we've helped dozens of municipalities throughout the state of California. And so we'd like to apply some of those learnings that we've worked on for those municipalities and their transit fleets in the past to help a broader community to reach their goals. So who do we serve? Any on-road, medium, or heavy-duty commercial fleet in California. So anything over 8,500 pounds, all the way up to 82,000 pounds. The eagle-eyed among you might notice that that is 2,000 pounds over the 80,000 pound weight limit, but zero-emission vehicles get a 2,000 pound bonus when it comes to their gross vehicle weight. Right now, we're working with fleets all the way from zero vehicles, just getting started. They might be startups. They don't have a fleet yet, all the way up to one fleet with over 52,000 vehicles. So we kind of have seen the size from small to large and runs the gamut. We can help with trucks, vans, and buses. And as of this past year, we're now also helping with electric school buses. We have a dedicated side just for electric school buses. And we have an emphasis on small fleets. That means fleets with fewer than 20 vehicles and disadvantaged communities. That being said, again, we're happy to help any fleet in the state. It's just that the small fleets and those in disadvantaged communities our resources are more tailored toward those folks. Got to go back a slide here. So why would you work with CalFleet Advisor? Well, you can gain an understanding of what benefits you see when you move to zero-emission vehicles. You know, whether it's operational, whether it's cleaner air for your community, whether it's saving money on fuel and maintenance, we're here to help you understand what this transition is going to look like. And we can also help you access infrastructure tools, logistical tools, financial tools, things that can help you make informed purchases. And on that note, we also like to refer folks out to project partners that they might need, whether that's your utility to help get your electrical connection set up, whether that's an OEM to answer your questions about a particular vehicle, or maybe you need to find a dealer for a vehicle that you've selected. We can help you learn from those experts on incentives, technology, and regulations. And then, of course, everyone's favorite is help you access incentive funding and especially guidance on the HVIP incentive program. Couple of things that we're not equipped to do. And these are less limiting than it may at first appear, but I just like to bring this up so that we're all on the same page and we all understand what we're capable of. First thing is we're not electrical engineers, and despite my enthusiasm for this topic, we can't help with planning or permitting or engineering. But what we can do is help you with total power needs. If determine if you're putting in 8 chargers, how much power will that require? Talk about level 2 versus level 3 chargers and the benefits and detriments of the particular charging solutions that are out there, and help you also determine things like demand charges and what are the best times to charge your vehicle. We just can't help with the actual engineering of that. We're not grant writers. We would love to provide more help with this, but we are a limited team with limited resources, and we can't help with grant writing for the entire medium and heavy duty community in California. With that being said, though, we are happy to support your grant writing efforts so we can help you with identifying the right vehicles and chargers to write grants on. We can help you find grants. We can help you find other grant writing assistance. We can help you with the specifications that you're looking at when you're trying to determine what goes where and where to put your efforts. We're happy to help you. We just can't write the grant for you. We can't help with regulatory compliance determinations. That's up to CARB or the appropriate agency. Again, I work for a nonprofit on behalf of the state. I don't work for the state. So that's really up to the regulatory agency to help you with that. That being said, we're happy to refer you to the right folks over there to help you get quick answers if you're having a regulatory issue. I don't play favorites. As someone working for a nonprofit, I'm not looking to promote a particular brand or a particular service. So what we like to do is present the options on the market and narrow them down based off what you've said your operational needs are. But the fleets are going to make the choice on what they choose to pursue. And if they'd like a referral, we're happy to refer you to them, but it's going to be at your request. We're not going to say, hey, you need to contact company A. We're going to say, companies A, B, and C all appear to, offer the vehicle that you're looking for. Would you like a referral? And then say, yes, I'd like to speak to company B. And then we're happy to help with that. We have a large Rolodex of folks who are in the industry and are looking to make connections. So once you've made that determination, we're happy to connect you to those folks. And finally, I don't enforce regulations. I don't work for the state. The folks I work with at CARB aren't even in the regulatory or enforcement divisions. So, if you're having a concern about that, that would be something to take up with CARB. That's not something I'm here to worry about. I'm not here to enforce the rules or tell you what to do. We're here to help move forward with zero emission vehicles. So if you want to use CalFleet Advisor, it's really simple. There's 2 forms at calfleetadvisor.org. You can fill out the longer form or the shorter form. I'll tell you that 90% plus of people fill out the shorter form, and that's totally okay. Once you do, it'll go into our system, and someone will contact you within a day or two. And then we're going to talk about what you need with your assigned advisor who's assigned to your fleet and will be working specifically with you. Once we learn about your operations, we'll give you recommendations for what kind of vehicles, charging, and incentives might work for you. And then you can ask us for referrals to utilities, dealers, and project partners, which we're happy to provide. And then finally, we can look up what incentives are available, tailor to your fleet, and kind of determine how much of an incentive package you could get in order to implement your plan. And then once you get your zero emission vehicles, you're going to start saving on fuel and maintenance and all those awesome community benefits that we've mentioned before. A couple of things I'd like to bring up, just because these are always good advice for anyone getting into zero emission vehicles. First things first, you do want to contact your utility early. There can be long delays when it comes to upgrading lines, adding new transformers, perhaps upgrading an entire high voltage circuit. And it can take on the order of 6 months to many years, depending on how much capacity you need to add. So the earlier you contact your utility, the earlier they can get you in line for their plans. It's really important that we contact the utility as early as possible. As I would hate to see a vehicle get ordered and then it's sitting because you don't have the electricity to charge it. That being said, there are interim solutions that we can help with, but it's better to know ahead of time so that we can make those plans than to have a vehicle on the lot and suddenly it's not usable. Use the incentive programs before regulatory requirements because CARB generally prefers to incentivize proactive steps and not compliance. So if you're already having a regulatory issue, it's best to resolve those first before trying to use incentives because it tends to go smoother. You want to select the most cost-efficient charging option that still gets the job done. A lot of people think that I need to get the fastest, most high-speed charger that possible, and that's great, and it can be very useful. But on the other hand, it's often quite expensive. It takes longer to put in, and it costs the power that you use in your vehicles is going to cost more than if you'd picked a slower charging option. For many fleets, we find that just a slow level 2 charger that charges a vehicle overnight is more than adequate, and it doesn't require a bunch of utility work. It doesn't require a bunch of upgrades in the building to the electrical infrastructure, and you get done much less expensively and much more quickly. Also review your duty cycle. Can changes be made? Can we talk about what payload you need, what the range, how many people you need to move around, what charging do you need, and still meet your requirements? Perhaps one route that is longer than another could be share the load with a different route, reassign some vehicles, and then everyone can make it back to the depot for charging rather than having an extra long route that requires a mid route charging stop. And then check for public fuel charging or fueling options. Drivers have to take their DOT mandated breaks. So perhaps there is somewhere where they could stop at a depot along the way. Perhaps there's a public charging option. Perhaps you could contract with a third-party provider. Maybe you could have an MOU with another city that's nearby to help, build up some options so that you're not feeling like you're being limited by a particular vehicle's capacity. And then when it comes to zero emission vehicles, especially those funded by HVIP, currently there are two approved technologies. There are battery electric and there's hydrogen fuel cell. A couple of thoughts about each of those. Battery electric vehicles typically weigh more, so they have a lower payload capacity because the vehicle itself weighs more. That being said, for the transit space, this is probably less of an issue. This tends to come up a lot in the drayage community when they're hauling heavy sea containers that are right at the legal maximum for how much those can weigh. Battery electric vehicles can take anywhere from 1 to 10 hours to charge, and it's highly dependent upon what kind of charger and what kind of vehicle you're using. So it's a general estimate, but generally, a large class 7 or 8 vehicle on a fast charger is going to take maybe an hour and a half, something like that. 10 hours would be more like an overnight on a slow charger, which is again a much less expensive way of doing it. So it just depends on your operational needs, which solution you would pick. The typical range for battery electric vehicles, especially in the transit space right now, is anywhere from 100 to 250 miles. Honestly, for transit, more like 100 to 170, I would estimate, which is often more than enough for a typical transit route, but it's something to keep in mind. If you do have longer range vehicles or faster charging needs, it's something to consider. And battery electric vehicles tend to be less expensive to purchase and fuel than hydrogen. There is a price premium for hydrogen vehicles when you purchase them, and hydrogen fuel is quite expensive right now. For hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, they typically weigh more than a diesel, but less than a battery electric vehicle. And so with that extra weight capacity that you have on California roads with a zero emission vehicle, it tends to be a wash and it comes out to a standard payload capability. So if heavy loads are important to you, that's something to consider. The fueling for hydrogen can be very rapid. It typically well under an hour and sometimes up to about 20 minutes. So that's notably faster than most battery electric vehicles. And the range can be quite extensive. There are hydrogen fuel cell class 8 semi trucks on the road that can go up to 400 miles. So if you need those longer routes, hydrogen might be a better choice for you. If you need those faster fueling stops, hydrogen may also be a better choice. However, hydrogen is more expensive. Vehicles are much more expensive to purchase. What we've seen in the market is typically about a 50% premium over a battery electric vehicle. And the fuel is also quite expensive right now. It can be several times the cost of diesel. And for people who have sustainability mandates or concerns in that regard, hydrogen sourcing right now can be quite difficult. Most hydrogen in the state at the moment is made from steam reformation of methane. which typically comes from petroleum sources. So if you're looking to meet your sustainability goals, this might not be the best way to do it. In the future, there will be more what are called blue and green hydrogen, which are made from other sources. Green hydrogen is typically made from clean energy, clean electrical energy, and splitting water in the process called electrolysis. And that's obviously a zero emissions process. But until then, until those become more available, it can be difficult to source hydrogen that meets people's standards. When it comes to charging, there's a couple of considerations that you should keep in mind. First of all, the cost can really vary quite a lot depending on what kind of charging you do. Most places that are larger municipal or commercial facilities often have three-phase power, in which case you can put in what's called a DC fast charger. They run off of 480 volts. Um, and those will be the fastest charging option for your vehicles. That being said, the chargers themselves start at about $50,000 and they go up from there quite a lot. And the preparatory work to put those in is also quite expensive. Uh, that's nothing to say, and that doesn't even include the work that the utility will have to do in order to upgrade your facility if you do not have enough electrical access at your facility already. There's another option called a level 2 charger that runs off of 240 volt power, which everyone should have access to. It can be hardwired or plugged into an outlet similar to a welder, and those provide enough electrical energy to add usually between 20 to 60 miles per hour of charge for your vehicles. So if you're running smaller vehicles that don't have as big of a battery, if you are, if the vehicles are sitting idle overnight, these can be an excellent option to both on the installation costs and also on the cost of electricity. When it comes to the cost of the electricity, some things to keep in mind. Many of you are probably aware of time of use rates. So electricity costs more during that 4 to 9 p.m. Time spot versus after 9 p.m. or before 4 in the afternoon. And electrical utilities often always also use demand charges. So the faster you are asking for electricity, the more electricity you ask for at once, the higher that the rate will be for that electricity. So it is less expensive to take the same amount of electricity over a longer period of time than it is to ask for that electricity in a short period of time that a fast charger might have. So when you're looking at your charging options, you want to look at your electric rate structure. You want to look at your quantity of vehicles that you're charging and how long they have to charge. And there are chargers on the market that communicate with each other, and so you could have them set up so that they can slow charge vehicles at under that maximum rate. That would be, go over to a more expensive charge, and they can charge them sequentially so that once the first vehicle is charged, then the second vehicle starts charging. It's all very automatic. So your drivers just pull in, they plug them in at night, they go home. The chargers handle the timing overnight, and then everyone comes back to a full vehicle in the morning. I'd also like to highlight some resources for switching. Some popular incentives. Everyone's favorite is HVIP and ISEF. ISEF is a subset of HVIP. This is cash on the hood, and there's no rebate, there's no scrappage, there's nothing like that. The cash on the hood is automatic. There's no grant writing required. As long as the funding is available when you apply, then you're good to go. And there are increased amounts for small fleets, disadvantaged communities, drayage fleets, and more. There's all kinds of different increased amounts. If you're interested in this, we're happy to have a conversation about it. Or there's a CARB one-stop program next week that I'll be presenting more in depth on, which is in Sacramento, and I believe there's also a web availability for that as well. In addition to the statewide program for HVIP and ISEF, I apologize, I forgot to mention ISEF. ISEF is the Innovative Small E-Fleet program. So if you're a small fleet, you have access to that program, which allows you to do things like shorter term rentals, non-standard leases, innovative financing, combining charging or training with the purchase of a vehicle. There are all kinds of different options there that ISEF allows that aren't allowed in the standard HVIP program. Moving on to some other state-funded sources, there's the Carl Moyer program. Many of you are probably familiar with that. It's usually administered by your local air quality management district, so the rules are a little bit different in every part of the state. but it does require scrapping an older diesel vehicle. So if you have a vehicle that you need to scrap that is in that age range, that's great. Otherwise, the Carl Moore program might be a little more difficult for you to use. Similarly, there is the VW Diesel Fund. It is stackable with the HVIP program up to 90% of the cost of the vehicle. So keep in mind that HVIP's maximum payout is up to 90% of the cost of the vehicle, which doesn't include taxes or fees. The diesel fund also requires scrapping an older diesel vehicle, so that's something to keep in mind. And then people ask us about tax credits. If you have purchased zero emission vehicles this year, there was a commercial clean vehicle tax credit. It has since been eliminated, but if you've already purchased it, before I believe September was the deadline. Please don't quote me on that. I'm not a tax attorney. You can claim this credit. It's up to $40,000, and municipalities can use direct pay to get money back, even though you don't file a tax return at the end of the year. There's also an infrastructure credit, which I believe does go through the end of this year, so there's still time for that. Again, please check with your accounting folks. Please check with the tax attorneys, because I am not a tax expert. And finally, if you're looking for more incentive opportunities, I'd recommend CalStart's Funding Finder. It's a free resource that you can find all of the California state incentives that we know about. They're on that, and they're sorted by zip code. In addition, we're starting to add additional incentives around the country. So even if you have other operations elsewhere, you may be able to find some resources on the Funding Finder as well. And I'd also recommend you go to the CalFleet Advisor webpage. On that webpage, we have a resources spot where we have all kinds of different resources for us to use, including that Funding Finder. In addition to that, we have the HVIP vehicle catalog, where you can look up all of the vehicles that CARB has approved for use in HVIP incentives. If that vehicle catalog is not broad enough for you, there is also the ZETI tool, which is a tool that CalStart updates every year. And that is every zero emission vehicle on the market worldwide. So you just want to make sure that you are sorting by the right geographical area, not looking at something that's only available in Europe. But that can be an alternate tool if you're looking for vehicles that don't quite, if the HVIP vehicles don't quite match your needs. Some tools from our utilities that are great. The PG&E MSRP list is fantastic if you're looking for basic price information. They have MSRP published on a variety of zero emission vehicles, light, medium, and heavy duty, published on their website. And again, you can get a link to that in the CalFleet Advisor resources page. If you're in Southern California and you want to know how much electricity is available on your local circuit, Southern California Edison has their Dr. Pep tool, which can show you based on your address how much power is available and what the future next year or so's future plans are for that circuit. So that can help you identify if you're going to need utility upgrades or if they might be less onerous than otherwise. I've mentioned the Funding Finder that's also available on our resources page. We also have some links to CARB regulatory resources. And we have a medium and heavy duty infrastructure map, which we're very excited about. We are updating it regularly, and it shows everything in the state that we're aware of that is either under construction, in development, or operational for hydrogen and heavy duty electrical vehicle fueling. And so we're double checking that it allows larger vehicles to be able to access the space. And we've made that available. Again, it's a free resource online, and all of that can be found at calfleetadvisor.org/resources. And again, if you'd rather that we help you directly, just click on the top of the page there. It says Get Started Today at CalFleet Advisor and fill out the form there, and we'll be in contact with you within a day or two. So enough of hearing me yammer on. I'd love to turn it over to Julie and any questions that you folks have. I'm here to answer anything that you'd like.
Great. Thank you, Brian. There's so much information and so much resources out there for these fleets for that custom tailor-made solution at any point in their timeline for their transition. So it's really great to hear about all of it. We do have a question that came in from the chat. A person asked about the GVWR for the vehicles, and I think that was back on slide 7. The question is, what about the vehicles? Why 8,500 pounds GVWR? Why are those included?
So we include everything from Class 2B up through Class 8, primarily because we are funded by HVIP, and that is funded with funds that are specifically supposed to go toward those medium and heavy-duty vehicles. That being said, if you had a question about, a 6,000-pound pickup truck, I'm sure we could help you with that as well. It's just we tend to tailor our resources toward those larger vehicles because that's where our funding comes from.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the time for questions. So if you have a question, please use the raise hand function or press number 2 if you're calling by phone. We also have the Q&A channel that's open for dropping us a question. So I'll pause now to see if we have any more questions coming through. 1 second while I look. And I thought I saw one pop in. Okay, great. I see that Tom Madoff, I hope I got your name correct. He has a question. Please state your name and affiliation, and please go ahead with your question. Tom, did you have a question?
I think we lost Tom.
Yeah, I saw him pop up and then.
Tom, would you please unmute yourself?
Tom, are you there?
I am, but I do not have a question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, anyone else with questions? We have our raise hand feature is open. We also have the Q&A channel is open. While we wait, is there any clarifications we would want to make? We did drop some of the links in the webinar chat. So take a look there for the resources that we talked about today. It doesn't look like there's any questions at the moment in the chat, the Q&A, or the raise hand feature. So I'll pass it back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, I will stick around for a few minutes in case anyone comes up with something. Otherwise, please feel free to visit us at calfleetadvisor.org. And if you have additional questions about incentives or about the program, CARB is hosting that one-stop program next week on, I believe, the 9th. So there will be in person in Sacramento or a webinar function there, and I'll be speaking there as well.
Yes, yeah. And I think there is also a heavy-duty vehicle infrastructure discussion workshop next Monday. So I'm also going to drop the link there in the chat.
Brian, if anyone wants to get a hold of the CalFleet Advisor team, is there an email address that you would prefer, or what's the best way? Because I could drop that in the chat.
Sure, I'll drop in the chat. It's
Okay.
calfleetadvisor@californiahvip.org. But I'll drop that in the chat for you as well.
So, I cannot find that information on our website. So maybe I will just send an email to everyone about the infrastructure discussion that CARB is having next week. But well, oh, there's a new chat. So Jackie from CalACT is asking that is there a time limit on the amount that the transit agencies can receive or for the assistance?
We do not currently limit the amount of time that we can provide to a particular fleet, and we've worked with some fleets for many, many hours, and others just have a single question that we answer, and then they're happy to move on. So, it's really at your pace, and we're happy to help in whatever capacity that we can.
That is excellent. And Brian, is it true that I think for one or a few of your clients, they because of their pace was not fast, and I believe that you have worked with them for like over 1 year, right? in order to bring them to where
Yep.
they need to be.
Yeah, we've had fleets that, they have their own pace and that's totally fine. And I have one fleet that I first met them in the summer of 2023, and we hear from them off and on, and they just got a truck, I believe, a month ago. So, it just depends on whatever's operationally doable for the fleet that we're working with.
Great. Thanks a lot, Brian. So I want to go with another run to see if we have additional questions.
Okay, I'll take a look. Nothing at the moment, but yeah, our Q&A channel is wide open for questions as well as the raised hand feature. Seeing numbers drop, so I think we may have addressed everyone's questions at the moment, so that's good. But yeah, nothing coming in.
So I think I'm going to drop another link. That is for the CARBs at the heavy duty vehicle infrastructure. That is even though the name of the public meeting is for trucks, but really it is for all the heavy duty vehicles. So I think there is really some benefit that transit agencies also listen in. Okay, so if we don't have any additional questions or comments, I think we want to thank Brian one more time and also our staff for supporting this. Also really appreciate both CalACT and the CTA for your promotion on this webinar, and also thanks all of the participating transit agencies for your time and your support on clean transportation. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you, Yachin and Brian, for putting on the webinar. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jackie.
for having us.
Thank you.
Yep.